Salvete. We're going to be taking a look at adjectives here. I'm using the Cambridge Latin course, Unit 4 book, but you can find this kind of thing in your Aeneid book or in any grammatical book or even online. These tables, just like the noun stuff, you could find that stuff too. If you look on this pages here, here's all the nouns that we've just been going over. You know, you can see they lay it out a little bit different. They have the singular on top of the plural, whereas I had the singular right next to the plural. And I prefer that arrangement because then you can kind of see how singular changes to plural really easily. That's why I was using my own tables on all that stuff instead of using theirs. Like if you look on one of these, oops, well, we won't look at that right now. If you look on an example like this, see I have my singular next to my plural so you can see how it goes and like that. But they have them on top of each other, so it's just a little bit different format. But all the forms are the same. So they got first declension, second declension, they got the second declension R's, the second declension neuters. They also have, well, third declension's over here. Third declension, there's some change, you know, they show you some differences, masculine, feminine, neuters, and then they got their fourth and fifth declension too. Fortus genu is a neuter one, and then fifth declension they got dies and res. So those are very helpful to take a look at. And those will be in FAR in the Aeneid book as well. So in adjectives, rather than spending a lot of time writing all this stuff out, since we've already gone over most of the endings, adjectives are also, they also have their endings change, just like nouns, and they follow first, second, and third declension, always, which is nice, because those are the most common declensions. So, you know, just as a little note here, whatever the case, number, and gender of a noun is, then you have to match it up. So if you want to say Caecilius est vir, and Caecilius is a man, and you want to talk about what kind of a man he is, he's a good man, then you would say he's a vir bonus. You got to say bonus. You can't say bona, because that would be feminine. You can't say bonum, because that would be accusative. You got to use, because vir is nominative, masculine, and singular, you got to also use the, as you see on the chart here, the nominative, masculine, singular form for vir. Okay? If you're talking about Metella est femina, it'd be femina bona. Okay? Whatever the noun is, the adjective has to match up with it perfectly. And they don't, you know, always look like they match. Sometimes they do, like something like a servus bonus. Those obviously go together because they look the same. But a leo, third declension, bonus, you know, that's nominative and that's nominative, but their endings don't match as neatly here. This is an R nominative, and that's a regular, you know, us in the second declension. So they don't necessarily look similar like this, but they are. That's how it works. So since you need to be able to have an adjective for every case, for every gender, and for singular and plural, they have all these different forms of the adjective. Here's the singular up here, here's the plural down here. Notice mine usually go side by side. These go like this. So, you know, you got bonus. It's just the second declension. If you did that song, you know, us, orum, o, is, os, o, is. I'm just going up and down instead of across. Then that's it. And so if it's masculine, it follows second declension for certain adjectives, like bonus. They call this an adjective of the first and second declension. If it's feminine, it follows the first declension, because usually masculine nouns are second declension, and usually feminine nouns are first declension. And then if it's neuter, it follows what's also the second declension, neuter. And then these are just similar examples of an R adjective, one that ends in R instead of us. So it's basically the same exact thing except that nominative form. Instead of being pulchris, it's pulcher. And that's pretty common to have some adjectives like that. And then there's also adjectives that follow the third declension. And keller, fast, would be one. Keller, wir keller would be a fast man. Servus keller, but a femina kelleris. Femina kelleris, because this is the feminine. So you notice that these follow the pattern of the third. You know, we go is ace, here's the ace, is ibus, it goes am ace, yes am ace, a, well in this case I, ibus. Adjectives, instead of ending in e, like most ablatives would end in e in the nouns, the adjectives always end in I, and some nouns do too, but that's just how it works. So these adjectives, anything that's a third declension adjective follows the third declension endings, and a lot of other adjectives follow the second and the first declensions. So they call this a first and second declension adjective. They call these a third declension adjective because that's how their pattern goes. Okay, let's see what else is over here. We also have comparative adjectives, and you can go ahead and take a look at this stuff if you want, but let's see here. Comparative adjectives, you got longus means long, longior means longer, and longissimus means the longest. So you got what we call the positive, longus, the comparative, longior, and then the superlative, longissimus. And if it's a comparative, it's going to follow the third declension. You can take a look at these. If it's a superlative, it's going to follow the first and second, depending on the gender. Okay? So you can see that ends just like longus, it's longissimus, but longior, that's going to follow third declension. It's helpful to understand how that works. Now, not all adjectives are regular. Here's an example of some regular ones, right? These are called the comparison of adjectives. So you got longus, longior, longissimus. Okay, looks pretty regular. Pulcher, pulcher, pulchior, pulcherimus, right? Fortis, fortior, fortissimus. Felix, felicior, felicissimus, right? Prudens, prudenter, prudentissimus. Faculus, faculor, facilimus. Okay, so those are, this is always going to follow first and second, always going to follow third declension, it's always going to follow first and second. But then you got those irregular forms, which you use a lot in class too, because they're very common, and there's just some adjectives that don't follow the pattern. Like bonus, you don't say bonior bonissimus. For some reason, you say melior optimus. Okay. Malus, you don't say malior malissimus, you say peior pessimus. And you just gotta know these. Magnus, maior maximus, parvus, minor minimus, multus, plus, plurimus, and multi, plures, and plurimi. And again, these are gonna follow, first and second over here, third, and first and second. That's just how it always works. And that is adjectives. Walete.